Pass, pipes and drums! By the center! Quick! March!
Jesus is King. Welcome to the Terror of Demons morning show with the author himself, Kennedy Hall. Kennedy, how you doing, brother?
Good. I still can't believe how great that intro is. For the Dude,
it's like I could just watch it every day, all day long.
It's amazing.
I was just reading one of the best martyrdom stories ever, which is in 2nd Maccabees.
Oh yeah.
Chapter 6 and 7. There's two different tales. There's the old Eleazar, who's like, he's like really old, and they're like, oh, please just eat the pork, or we can even give you fake
chicken
pork,
or whatever.
Not real. Eat chicken. And he's like, no, I won't do it. And boom. I love it so much. And then there's the 7 sons and the mother who just it's
unreal.
Totally unreal. Yeah. Oh man. So today we're talking about I want to go into some of the controversy of Lefebvre St. John Paul II.
Sure.
But first, we're going to talk about the more important things in some sense, the high intensity lifting.
Sure.
I say more important simply because
it's strict to our theme of the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sometimes we can get caught up in so many controversies that we're trying to figure out all these different things about John Paul II and Lefebvre and all this and this controversy and that controversy. But if we're not actually lifting, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
You're not actually taking care of your own soul, your own body.
Mm-hmm.
You're more concerned with debating people on the internet. That would be a problem.
It would be. Yeah. Lifting is like a prayer for the body. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a great way to say it. I was trying to think of to me, I prioritize lifting second in terms of self-care. I mean, obviously, assuming you are getting enough food and sleep, first of all. But I would say prayer, doing my prayer time. The only time that I would not do the lifting is if I have to do my prayer time. Like the prayer time, for whatever reason, I have to skip it, whatever. I don't know. Like prayer, It's like priorities are like you get enough food and sleep, and then prayer time, and then lifting in terms of self-care. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if it was like, you got a chance to go to the gym, or it's like a feast day mass, like you obviously go to mass, or even, I mean, it'd be pretty tough in my situation to have to miss a workout because of prayer, because I mean, my morning, I'd pray a version of The Office morning and night. I mean, it's like 5 or 10 minutes and I have a gym in my house. So it's not like that conflict would come up. I mean, if it is, I'm just really terrible at managing my time.
Yeah.
But obviously the first things come first. So spiritual life comes first. But this is good that we're going to talk about high intensity training because it's something I've learned in the last few months, and I wish I knew it my whole life. And it is perfect for fathers and conscientious, busy men in general, because it only requires 2, maybe 3 times a week for a maximum of 10 to 15 minutes, which sounds like prosperity gospel. This can't be true.
It does sound like prosperity gospel.
Let me give you a little, but after this show though, there's a guy named Jay Vincent. He's definitely a pro-masculinity guy. I don't think he's a practicing Christian of any sort, but he has done stuff with Elliot Hulse, who is a massive workout YouTuber who has had a big conversion to Catholicism. He read Terror of Demons. He watches our show here. He was one of
JVincentFitness.com.
Yeah. And
That
Elliot
sounds like the
Hulse
guy,
has
right?
Strength Camp. And Yo Elliott, he has these 2 YouTube channels, like 1 million subscribers each. It's crazy. But he was an OG lifter on YouTube back in the day when it was just becoming a thing, and he would have like millions of views on his videos and stuff. And he's a legend in the fitness scene. There's Jay Vincent. I can't justify all of his views on everything. It's YouTube. What are you going to do? Although he is part of the sort of manosphere, like men's movement. So he's definitely anti-feminism stuff. So he's pretty tolerable. But anyway, he talks about high intensity training, and he has been on Elliot Hulse's show a bunch. And Elliot, the point is he became a traditional Catholic, and he's actually doing stuff with like Tim Gordon and Taylor Marshall and
Elliot Hulse is on YouTube, you're saying?
Elliot Hulse, Hulse. He's the people watching this probably know who he is. Some of them. He's like a legend. He is full on, fatherhood and masculinity and all this kind of stuff. And he's like been like a competing strongman and things like that. And he has had a major conversion in the last 3 or 4 years and has become like this outspoken traditional Catholic. But he has this background in lifting.
I love it. Promiscuous men are actually feminists. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So anyway, this guy. So after this, you go look up Elliot Hulse, Jay Vincent, high intensity training. You'll find more like they're going to go into the nitty gritty of like studies and things like that. Okay. But I'm just going to give the Coles notes of why this is so important. Excuse me. Okay. Number 1, injury. Okay. I've been lifting since I was 14 years old. Not bragging, but I've had some crazy numbers. Like when I was in grade 11, I was doing military press with 100-pound dumbbell sets of 15. Real story. It's a true thing. I was one of those kids who picked up a weight and it was like the next day I had a bigger bench press. I will never have a 6-pack again for the rest of my life, except for the one in my fridge. But when it comes to putting on muscle mass and picking heavy stuff up, I come from, stocky mountaineer Italian stock, and that's what we do. That's my thing. So I've been lifting forever, and I've, had massive numbers in combine. I had 25 reps at 225 when I was 18 or 19. For guys that know what that is, don't know what I'm talking about. That's like the NFL combine type workouts. I was always very strong. When I was young, didn't matter what I did. I could do CrossFit. I could do powerlifting. I could do Olympic style stuff. I could do classic bodybuilding workouts. I could do calisthenics. And it was just like the gains would come and I wouldn't get injured. Then as I started getting into my, I had a couple like catastrophic injuries from sports, but not from lifting. I tore an ACL and stuff, but that wasn't a lifting thing. That was just, bad hit, wrong time, wrong side of the knee sort of thing. But then when I started getting in my late 20s, early 30s, I started getting ouchies. You get like pain in the elbows, and you get, doing a power clean. Oh, there was something in the upper back. I probably should have done that. And then I'm like, okay, I'm trying to continue this lifting. I'm 34 now. And even last winter, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get into the bodybuilding style of working out. Bodybuilding's a weird sport, but they're geniuses in what they do. They're like walking science experiments. And so I was like, maybe if I just transition to like lighter weight, higher repetition, this will be less stress on your joints. It is in a sense because it's less load. But then I was still getting all these pains. I was seeing the gains again. I was happy. But then it's like after 2 or 3 months of doing that 4 to 6 days a week, like the classic program, yeah, you're getting the pump. Yeah, whatever. But then I'm like sitting there at my desk. And I'm like, my elbow, like my arms are aching. My forearms are aching. Like I can't keep doing chin-ups like this. I can't, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to become like a shuffleboard athlete, like I'm not going to stop lifting. But I know that there's no point in me trying to smash out these huge numbers. I've done it before. I'm not going to gain anything by it. What's the point of the risk? Let's be honest. I'm not going for an NFL combine tryout anytime soon.
Right. Good point.
All it is ego. At that point, for me, at least. I'm not saying that for people who have goals, they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying personally, but then I'm also seeing that if I do this like high rep, low weight stuff, medium weight stuff, it's it's less of a stress in one way, but I'm getting different ouchies. I'm like, goodness gracious, I need to figure this out or I'm just going to become fat and not work out anymore. So, and by the grace of God, seriously, I found this high intensity training. So here's the crux of what high intensity training is. So there was research going back to even the time of World War II, where they studied the effect of resistance training, not weightlifting as a sport. Those are different things. That's one distinction I should make as well. There are guys who are 160 pounds who could probably deadlift twice as much as me, but it doesn't mean they're stronger in their actual muscle mass. We get in a wrestling match, I could probably wipe the floor with them. People have skills and they have strength. And sometimes they put both together and they get impressive at certain skills that are sports. So this is why you have these little Chinese guys that are like squatting 700 pounds and they're 140 pounds or whatever the number would be. They've practiced that movement so many times, and they have a certain amount of natural genetic gifts where the levers and their angles of their hips and stuff kind of work perfectly, but they also can't walk when they're 50. So what's the point? So there's a difference between strength and skill. So they were actually testing the strength. So a guy comes back from World War II. He's had like an atrophied leg because half of it was blown off. They would be like, okay, what's the actual increase in strength in his quadricep muscle? Not what can he squat, is his muscle improving? Because that's the technical barometer of strength, is the muscle's ability to move a load. That's what it is. So if you want to test strength properly, although things like deadlift and bench press and squat are impressive, and definitely if you have big numbers, you're strong, but there's a major skill involved that requires injury risks and things. So for example, a better test of your brute quadricep strength would be a leg extension with the proper angles and things like that, because it would be strictly how strong is your quadricep, not how strong is your quadricep combined with your skills, your coordination, and also your ability to squat based on repetitions and practice, right? It's often the case that people who have big squats will also have strong quadricep extensions, but you take out those variables. Okay. So they studied these things with these World War II veterans, and they realized something very interesting. There is no notable improvement to the muscle strength after one set to failure, positive failure, meaning in that period of time from 60 to 90 seconds that you're performing the exercise in a controlled manner. They find that there is no improvement in their muscle strength if they do any other sets after one set to positive failure. So there was this thing called the DeLorean-Watkins protocol. And basically what that was is they would do 2 warm-up sets, which were kind of like 50, 60%, more of a psychological thing. Just get yourself ready for the movement. And then they would do 1 set very slow. We're talking 3 to 5 seconds up and down, long enough that it's really hard, not too long that you have to use some dinky weight, kind of like a perfect medium. It's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4. You can imagine yourself, and you don't extend all the way, because when you extend, you take the load off of the muscle, you put it on the joint without muscle control behind it, which is injury, right?
Wow.
Okay. So they would get between 60 and 90 seconds, you get anywhere from 8 to 12 reps, roughly. If you do 8 times 10 seconds per up and down, roughly, right? You get to the point, and I thought I knew what muscle burn was. I did CrossFit. I did all these things. I'm in my basement doing dips with an assistant, and I can do dips without it, but because of the speed, I'm doing dips with an assistant, and I'm screaming like a crazy person because of the deep, and here's why it works so well. So, and this is why you guys got to watch Jay Vincent and Elliot Hulse more, because they're scientists, right? But there's myths about fast twitch and slow twitch. If you have fast twitch, does not mean you're fast. They're just different types of muscle fibers. When you get to the point of complete deep fatigue, every single fiber is recruited. So the slower you go, the slower you go and the deeper the fatigue, the more muscle fibers have to be recruited in order to perform the movement. This is why when people do world records for their strongest, biggest lifts, they're always slow, because it's not possible to do it without recruiting every single muscle fiber. The whole muscle has to be there. Contrast that to, for example, I remember doing those bench press tests, and you're basically bouncing them off your chest and literally using inertia to get those lifts. You would not include all your muscle fibers because not a lot of them would be engaged. So by the time you've got to the point where you've completely exhausted the entire muscle belly to the point of positive failure, what you've done is you've got to the place where now your muscle is forced to make an adaptation. So any further, because it's technically damage you do to your muscles, you technically tear them in a sense. Any further damage doesn't make improvements. It actually just makes recovery take longer. So this is like, I'll give you an example of the workout going to the gym. So today I'm probably gonna do legs. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go do squats. If you have leg press or you have leg extension, those are, I wish I did, I don't. Squats are still really good. They can be really safe. You can do them very safely, and I do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna put 2 plates aside, roughly, probably 2 plates aside. And I'm gonna do between 8 and 12 reps, very slow cadence, and I'm not going to extend. I'm going to go just past parallel, and I'm going to go just up to where my knees are bent a little bit. 50 to 60 seconds in, I'm going to be seeing Jesus. I'm going to be screaming like a crazy person. And then just before I get to the point, because you have to be safe, just before I get to the point where I think I'll either have to drop it or I'm going to miss putting it on the rack, I'll just put it back. I'll give myself 5 to 15 seconds. I'll put it back on my back and I'll do a couple negatives and then I'll put it back. And at that point, I will have exhausted the muscle bellies within about 70 seconds to 2 minutes. And I will tell you, I will not be able to walk properly for 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Let me just get this straight.
Sure.
Because I'm translating the program I use is Strong Lifts, which is like a three a week, but it's like half an hour to 60 minutes per time, 3 times a week. So, so what you're saying is you basically take so like right now I'm on a plateau with my bench. So what I need to do is I need to take that weight amount and I just need to lift without going all the way up, just doing these like slower up and down so that your muscles are totally engaged during the entire lift the whole time.
Yeah.
And then just learning how to get to the point where you fail. Because typically I'm failing. Like I'm getting that final rep where I fail. And it's like, I guess the way that I always test it is, because here's my question is, how do you determine when you're failing or what that point is? Because I typically say if I grunt and I can't make it, that's like to me, if I'm grunting and I still can't do it, that's the fail to me.
Yeah. It's a type of failure, but is it an efficient failure? So this is the thing about high intensity training. It's about efficiency. So it's like, if you can do something in 12 minutes, and you get the same or better results as something that takes you half an hour, do that thing in 12 minutes, right? Because again, lifting is a means to an end. It's a means to strength and health and mental focus and things like that, right? So let's take bench press. So I could go down in my gym right now. I could put a couple plates aside, maybe a 25-pound wheel either side, and bang out 7 or 8 reps. And I would fail on 7 or 8. But I'd be failing to get it up. It wouldn't be that all of my muscle bellies had failed, because the nature of it being so heavy is I'd have to engage my back. I'd have to engage my hips. I'd have to engage inertia from it bouncing off my chest. And then I would have sort of just lock out and I'd put it back. That'd be the classic way I would do my bench press. If I go down there and I put 185 pounds on the bar, so take off 50 or 60, 70 pounds from what I had on it, all of a sudden I can move slow the whole time. And then when that failure that I will get to will be, I couldn't press the weight up at that same cadence if I tried. That's the difference. So I wouldn't be able to do the movement as I was doing it and continue to get the weight up. That's very different than I'll heave it and I'll get to that point where I can't heave it up there anymore.
So I think I'm gonna make the assumption that most of our viewers and listeners are probably doing some sort of so-called traditional program that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Even though that's not traditional. Like I think Strong Lifts is also based on the starting strength. I think is the really famous one. I think it's a similar one to Strong Lifts. I'm not sure.
It's like powerlifting basically.
Okay. The power rack. That's the thing that I use is the power rack with the bar. So if people are doing this, which is basically like you have at least strong lifts really quickly is just you have to do five sets of 5 sets of 5 reps. And then every new, so like every other week you add 5 pounds to, so you're just adding.
Yes.
So what you're saying is I should take this max that I'm at with my bench or with whatever, and then I should take 50 pounds off it or something, and then do that really slowly up and down. And then that's going to be like 30 seconds or less until I can't.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, I'll find something here in a bit.
I'm just trying to think of the best way to transition to this for people who have done.
Okay. So let me just send you a little video here of Elliot Hulse actually doing some of the lifts. It's really good. Just, I don't think there's any swearing or anything, but there's no point in having the audio on anyway. So you can play that. Can you? Yeah, you can play that, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put it in the private chat here, and it's him doing bench on a bench press machine, but you could do it with a barbell or dumbbells. Doesn't matter. It's just he has a machine in the gym he's in. Okay,
well,
so
that brings up the importance of the home gym, which we've discussed elsewhere.
Yes,
importance of the home gym, because gyms are typically.
Well, and this is a private gym actually, so it's
that's nice.
It's anyway. So this whole high intensity training thing is such a rabbit hole. It goes down like it's actually the way that all bodybuilders trained pretty much until Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was a businessman. And the American mentality, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's more is more. It's like, why would I buy something or believe in something where I get less? I want more reps. I want more exercises. That must do, if I'm doing more, I must get more, right? So go to minute 6. Go to minute 6, and you'll watch how he does bench.
Okay.
And this is exactly what high intensity training should look like.
Audio too? Here we go.
You could do audio. I don't think there's any swearing or anything.
And then do this. You can feel your pectoral tract. Right. That's why this machine's great.
So that's the cadence. Now, Elliot could bench 400 pounds, okay?
You're going to notice, too, when you get back there, the machine is so well designed. You feel those muscles loaded back there.
If I'll comment, if you're doing this at home and you don't have a machine, machines are actually better for high intensity training if you have access to cables, because there's no moment where there's no tension, because it's got a consistent resistance. You can do things like add elastic bands under your palms while you're pressing, just light ones, so that at all moments there's a little bit of a pullback. So this is one set.
Squeeze. Squeeze. 1 or 2. Here we go. Stay focused.
So you can tell he's getting to the point. That's failure. Like, he's getting to the point where it'd be impossible for him to press any more at the same cadence. And
okay, so it's when you have to slow down, that's the failure. So is that what you're saying?
When you can't keep doing it at the same cadence. So what he could do right there is he could do a heave and he could get it up,
right?
Because he would engage something besides his chest and triceps.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But then that's taking away from the fatigue of the chest and triceps, so you're not getting the efficient. You can stop the video now.
That makes sense.
All like that. Okay, so here's the reality. If you're going to go to the gym, if you're going to work out, you're there for a purpose. And the purpose is the strength and vitality of your body. So if you're doing, and this is the thing, you only do one working set per exercise, just one. And in some cases, you don't even have to do warm-ups. So I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of my, the guys that are super hardcore with this and they have gyms like that and coaches, they get to such a level of deep fatigue because they have someone coaching them through it. They do one workout a week. They do a full body workout once a week, takes them 22 minutes. And these guys look, I mean, if their genetics allow it, they get the same gains as somebody else. My workout is 2 to 3 days a week, because usually what I do is I'll do like a pushing day, a pulling day, and a legs day. And the reason I separate those all is because there's going to be no overlap between any of the muscle groups used in any of them. So I can get the muscle group to complete fatigue And then I need 7 or 8 days before I do that same one again because I'm too sore. So for example, today I'll go do legs. I'll do squats. I'll do a type of more hamstring centered deadlift. And then I'll do slow single leg calf raises on a step, and it'll take me 9.5 minutes, and I will be not able to walk properly for 2 or 3 days. And for squats, I'll do like a couple warm-up sets just to kind of get myself in the mood, but I don't do warm-up. But after I've done that working set of squats, I'm warm. I don't have to warm up for deadlifts. I don't have to warm up for calves. Upper body, my pushing day, I'll go down. I have adjustable dumbbells like the ones you can load plates on that are they're like mini barbells, so I can use my Olympic plates and stuff for them. And I'll do dumbbell bench press. I find dumbbell bench press is easier to do in this way because you have more freedom with where you can put your angles, so you can have more of a connection to the actual movement. Barbell still works. You can do that. It's also easier to fail with dumbbells because if you got to the point where you couldn't push up, you just drop them. Right. I'll do that, and then I'll go. So I'll do chest press, either incline or flat, doesn't matter. And then I'll go right into dips, and I'll be so exhausted that when I get to the dips, I literally have to put my foot on like a step in order to get myself up and down. But I'll keep going with the little extra with the extra help, because with that extra help, I can go to the point where I'm fatiguing and failing beyond what I'd be able to do if I didn't have the help. So even though it's like an ego thing though, you think, well, I'm not doing deadlifts without help or dips. It doesn't matter. It's not about your ego. It's about fatiguing the muscle belly to the point where it's completely exhausted. Then after that, I'll go into like shoulder flies, very slow. I literally used 11 or 12 pounds, and it's like you just fly them up, come down. You're moving slowly the whole time. You'll want to chuck those weights on the ground by the time you're done because you're screaming. And then I'll do tricep presses, supersetted, like overhead sort of push the plate or the dumbbell overhead, and then I go right to these really thick elastic bands that have heavy resistance, and I do a press down. Done. 14 minutes, done. And it's like the gains that I've seen both, and then also you get strong really fast. Like I'll go back the next week and I'll have to put more weight on, just like back when I was a teenager, honestly. And I have no injuries, because it's possible to injure yourself, of course, doing anything. But think about how many movements you would do if you were doing traditional weightlifting, or what is considered traditional, versus this. I'm doing probably 1/10 to 1/8 the amount of actual movements, which clearly that reduces the amount of time for injury. Also, I'm not loading my joints at any time in any of the workouts where I'm either putting all the stress on a locked out joint or all the stress on a joint that's completely not locked out, but the opposite of that, whatever, bent. So it's not like old school leg press where I like get so tired, I like bring the weight down and I like, totally flex to the point where there's no muscle engagement and I bounce it up. Nothing like that. Nothing at all. So at all times, your muscles are engaged to help your joints and your ligaments, which reduces that. And another thing they found with this high intensity training, which is why, again, it was used initially for the training of soldiers, rehabilitation, your ligaments should be strengthened by weight training, properly done, unless you do them to the point where they can't recover. And that's where the injuries come. So guys will do legs on Tuesday and they'll do legs on Friday. And they're doing legs on Tuesday. They're doing 7 or 8 different exercises, 3 sets each. That's like 25 sets of exercise, right? With a significant amount of weight where they're heaving things around. And they do their light leg day on Friday, superset with their shoulders, but they're doing the same thing. So they've done like 42 sets of legs in 1 week with not significant enough time to heal in between. And then they wonder why they tear their ACL playing softball for their church softball team, because their ACLs are weak, not because training is bad for your joints, but because they didn't give their joints enough time to heal. Last thing before I finish my rant here as well, the fitness industry is an industry. So all of it is a lie. You know, there's a guy named Mike Menser who was like an Ayn Rand rationalist, so annoying in some of his views. But when it came to this thing, this is completely about the body, he was like bang on. And he was into Greek philosophy and stuff. He was a very interesting cat. He won Mr. Olympia heavyweight division and was runner-up for the Mr. Olympia in like 1980. And he was on steroids for sure, but he revolutionized the HIIT protocol for people who weren't on steroids. He used it as a steroid user, so he would do 3 to 4 workouts a week because he could heal faster because he was on steroids. But then he revolutionized the protocol for the average person. They could do 1 to 2 workouts a week and get as best results as their genetic potential would allow them to get. And he has all these audio tapes. And again, he was super intelligent. They're very fascinating to listen to. And he's super reasonable, super rational, to a fault, obviously, with things like religion. But when it came to science, he was wonderful. And you look up Mike Menser, and he explained all this stuff in detail. And he's just really pleasant to listen to, talk about it, because again, he is very moral and very into philosophy and things. So he has a way of talking about training. And one of the things that he illuminated was, being a bodybuilder, just how much of a scam the fitness industry is.
Yeah.
You know, like new program. There's no such thing as a new program. It's like, well, I read this in my book, Terror of Demons. You can't make spaghetti sauce better than Nonna. I'm sorry, Anthony Abate. It's not going to happen. Your Nonna's is not, you know, it's impossible, you know. There's no such thing as I revolutionized Nonna's sauce. No, you didn't. Because garlic hasn't changed. Onions haven't changed. Tomatoes haven't changed. Parsley's the same. You're never going to make it any better. When it comes to physical things that have potentials built into them based on their biology, unless you're going to add drugs to it, and then you can do things that natural people can't do, that's different. But if you're just a natural lifter, there is no reinventing the wheel. The reason why new programs work is because people get bored and they get unmotivated because they've been sold this idea that lifting is an activity that you should do often and for long periods of time and enjoy yourself the whole time. So when they do the 3 times 10, whatever, and after 6 months was so boring, that's why I joined my CrossFit gym. That's why I joined my local powerlifting club, which if you want to do that as a sport, that's great. Those are sports and have huge injury rates. I mean, massive injury rates. Okay. And the top pros are all on roids. There's no testing at the CrossFit games. Let's be honest. You don't think guys are going to take roids if they can win like $100,000 and no one's going to test them? Like,
Yeah.
Give me a break. Like, and they get Nike sponsorships and Reebok and like, you know, it's the same. They're the same. I'm not saying that I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's what they're doing. Well, so anyway, sorry, go on.
No, I mean, what we're getting here, I mean, you easily convinced me this is the most superior lifting program.
Yeah.
It has many advantages that you just said. It's for fathers who don't have a lot of time and also less injuries. I mean, that's pretty much it. You want to get strong. You don't want to take a lot of time away for your family, and you don't want to get injured. It's perfect. I mean, so let me just get to some of the questions we've got. We're not going to get to all the questions, but so I just want to recommend the Terror of Demons men's group on Telegram. Anybody who is a guild member of Meaning of Catholic or a patron subscriber of the Kennedy Report, y'all can be a part of this group. So if your question is not answered in this broadcast, just hit up Kennedy in this chat and we can talk more about it.
It's a pretty good group. I'm not going to lie.
Oh yeah. I'm very happy. So here's one. I mean, this Joshua says, what is the best power snack to eat before and after a workout? Should we eat egg yolk protein shakes? I mean, this seems to be another industry thing. I mean, you just need protein, basically. You just need basic nutrition. You got the 4 macro food groups: protein, fat, carbohydrates. Whatever. But protein is the main thing. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Kennedy?
So there's another video by Jay Vincent. It's called like 15 myths of the fitness industry debunked. It was at a men's conference that Elliot Hulse helps organize. It's not a Catholic men's conference. It's sort of just like men's improvement. So there's a Christian flair, but some of the talks are just about finances or whatever, you know, dating advice, things like that. But in any case, he did this really good talk. And this is another, there's nothing wrong with eating before or after your workout. This is the reality about diets and performance though. All there are macronutrients. Meaning all there are carbs, fats, and protein. You gain or lose weight if you eat more or less than your body needs to sustain a certain weight. This is why every diet works. You go and do, I was watching Deacon Harold Burke on
You're not
Matt
making anybody money right now, Kennedy.
There's no money in it. There's no money in it.
There's no money in saying the truth about nutrition. It's insane.
Yeah. So I did when I was 19 and I was asked to transition from being an offensive lineman to being a fullback for university football. I lost like 30 pounds, got a faster 40 time, whatever. The way I lost 30 or 40 pounds, I increased my workout. Sure. I was running and things. By the way, all this same protocol applies to cardiovascular as well, because your cardiovascular is a muscle system. So you'll get the same results cardiovascularly if you were to do 2 to 3 minutes, complete and utter effort to the point of you're probably going to puke on a bike than if you were to do 2 hours. Because if you don't get to failure, the way that your cardiovascular system improves is your body's ability to rid itself of lactic acid. So it stands to reason the more lactic acid you could build in the shortest amount of time, the harder your body has to work to get rid of it. You have greater improvements. UFC fighters have caught on to this. So a lot of they want to reduce injury. So they're always in the octagon and they're doing their training. They're like, okay, I'm not going to go and do some crazy workout after this where I could risk injuries on top of the fact that I'm already doing sparring. So they go on one of those Airdyne bikes and they do like 40 seconds of hell and like take 20 seconds off, do the same thing. And they've got this cardiovascular ability that it just explodes. There's no point in doing long distance runs unless it's your sport. If you want to do it for fun, do it. These are sports, these are activities. If that's what you enjoy, then that's what you do. But from a strictly cardiovascular improvement perspective, there's no difference. Okay. So as far as when I lost all this weight, when I was 19, I did like the low carb thing. It's not because I cut out carbs, it's because I cut out calories. I went from eating, let's call it 3,500 calories a day, to eating 2,500 calories a day, and then doing the same amount of exercise. Of course, I'm going to lose weight. So if you want to eat before and after your workout because you feel the best doing that, that's great. But there are so many myths, like this idea that you have to have protein when you're in like an anabolic state or whatever. So people are like, you need to have it within half an hour of your workout. Your anabolic state lasts for like 4 days. Okay. So it doesn't even make a difference. So it's mainly psychological. If you want to do protein shakes and stuff after, great. The only thing I'll add as well, it is a fact that if you have your blood sugars proper, then you'll have more energy for your workout. So if you want to eat like granola bar before you work out for the reason of having more energy, that's true. But as far as weight loss and all that kind of stuff, it makes no difference as long as you just cut the amount of food you eat overall.
Another question, which is kind of like a practical, I just had it, which is, I mean, the difficulty is building the routine, really. This is the tricky part. Sky Pilot says, what time of day do you get your workouts in? I have strange schedule because I work a graveyard shift. I am in decent shape, but I struggle with consistency. Also, do you only do high intensity workouts now, or do you mix in heavy lift days? I would just say that building a routine, the best way to do that is to start very slow, do something very easy in terms of your routine. Like try it once a week or something that's very easy, the easiest possible thing to do that you can do consistently, and then just build it consistently very slowly. You do one easy thing, do it for a month, and then you're like, okay, now I can add to that because I've built that consistency, built the routine. Kennedy, what are your thoughts?
So there's a false dichotomy there between the high and also the person that wrote, I think, HIIT. That's different. High intensity interval training is different than high intensity training.
Oh, that's good to know. So
high intensity interval training is basically like, it's another gimmick. It's, people will do it. That's a CrossFit mentality essentially, without not doing it justice, but it's more of like, anyway, that's different. High intensity training is this thing that we watched with Elliot Hulse. It's slow repetitions, medium weight, manageable weight, keeping the right form, etc. There's no point. There's no necessity to have a quote unquote heavy day. Your muscle doesn't know the difference between heavy day and medium weight day as long as it fatigues. So your body, this is why you look at gymnasts. Why are gymnasts completely jacked if they never lift weights and they're just doing calisthenics? Now, their sport causes injuries, but they do so many repetitions at such a slow cadence because of the nature of the sport that they push their muscles to the point of complete and utter fatigue, that their muscle has to adapt so they can do that movement again. So if you were to take a guy who does Olympic gymnastics and he's got those massive biceps and huge chests and big calves, partly it's genetics, But you were to say, go spend 3 or 4 weeks doing bench press and learning the skill. If he'd never done it, his bench would be massive because his muscle bellies are stronger. It's not a matter of the weight. It's a matter of the fatigue. It's just that you more efficiently get to fatigue when you have a manageable weight. You could do, in theory, you could do just the barbell, like 45 pounds, and do like 97 slow reps or something like that. But it's so inefficient and it's just a higher risk of injuries that there's no point. Whereas if you go and you do 101 plate per side, you get your 10 to 12 reps in that 90-second thing. It's just a more efficient way of getting fatigue because fatigue's the point. And then as far as consistency, my schedule's changed a lot too, to be honest, since we had a baby again and also since lockdown. I was leaving for work. Now I'm not. So I've been dealing with these things the last couple of years like everybody. So sometimes it's early in the morning, but then because this workout only takes 12 minutes, I can do 12 minutes of glory at 10 at night, you know? And to be honest, I find I go do that, then I'm invigorated after. Although I will tell you this, the amount of lactic acid that builds up, I did a back workout and I almost puked from a back workout. Who pukes from a back workout, right?
Oh, wow.
Because your biceps are actually the biggest muscle in your upper body, by the way. It's not your lats. Your lats are the widest, but there's more actual density to your biceps than there is to your lats, or more actual muscle mass overall. So you think about a back workout and you've got your lats and you got your biceps just getting completely destroyed. It's like doing legs on your upper body. So I was almost throwing up from doing chin-ups and from bicep curls, which sounds so anathema to this fitness culture of like, why would you do bicep curls, man? They're not functional. That's a other thing. There's no such thing as functional versus non-functional. If you're moving something, you're functioning. It's a complete, it's fitness industry nonsense. If you're moving a weight, you're moving a weight and you're using your muscles. It then becomes, how are you doing it? Anyway.
This is great. We've really gotten you on the soapbox, but we still have 20 more minutes to
Great. We have to talk about this this JP2.
Oh yeah. I
stuff.
mean, I just wanted to. I thought the comment that you made was very, very good, which was because my DRE at my parish, he said, you know, he's a trad, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I get it, but I get all the trad stuff, but you can't harden your heart towards your father. And there's a sense of where what you said in your broadcast was basically people are carrying around resentment against John Paul II. And you said, yes, he's, you know, Assisi, all these terrible things that happen, spreading indifferentism, et cetera, et cetera. But carrying around resentment is not Christian. You're just destroying your soul. You know, so I thought your comment was very good on that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, there are the point that I made in my video about, it's called John Paul II versus Marcel Lefebvre or something like that. It's a little clickbait of a title. It's not verses. It's just, that's the way it comes off. Right. You discover tradition and you come to an impasse. You know, you're like, oh, I love the tradition thing. You find this society, St. Pius X, or even if you find the fraternity, you still have to deal with the figure of Marcel Lefebvre, because it's like, should they have stage? Should they have not? You know? And you get to this point where you're like, it can't be that in 1988, at that moment, both of them were heroes or both of them were villains at the same time. It's like there was a thing that happened and it was either a right decision or a wrong decision, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of time people will discover traditionalism. They'll become partisans of Lefebvre, et cetera. But then they also grew up. I mean, I'm 34. John Paul II is like the Pope of my youth. I wasn't a practicing Catholic at the time, but like if people that are my age that were, it's like JP2 was a hero. You know, he was anti-communist and you know, was friends with Ronald Reagan. So if you're American, that's even bigger.
Yeah.
You know, there's just lots of things why it's like, he was pro-life, and in a world of whacked out leftism, JP2 was the conservative stopgap in a lot of people's eyes. So he was a hero, right? But then you discover other things. And my whole point is the church is in such a mess right now that how we deal with the questions around canonizations, which Dr. K has dealt with in a very sober and measured format. You know, it's not just fringy tradcat blog stuff.com, whatever things. These are legitimate. Yeah. These are legitimate questions to be asked. The church has admitted that in the past, canonizations were not infallible.
Yeah, the book is Are Canonizations Infallible? Question mark by River Press, has both views on it.
It does. There was a process that was not infallible, roughly, for about 1,000 years, roughly. And then they battened down the hatches to make sure there wouldn't be any issues. And then that process has changed to look in some ways a lot like the process that was said not to be infallible, or at least an version of it. So it's just, there are issues, there are questions people have. So you're in this soup of confusion. My whole point is, listen, if someone is canonized, they're canonized for what is canonizable about them. So John Paul or St. Augustine is canonized because of his conversion and then his life after that.
A good point you made. I like this point. Go ahead.
So if John Paul II is a saint in the sense that he deserves to be canonized no matter the process, then it would have to be whatever is canonizable about him. So I personally, if you want to try to hold John Paul II as someone venerable as a traditionalist, I would say the way he died was heroic. That's what I would say. The way he persisted in his duty. I wish that Benedict persisted in his duty and we didn't have Francis right now. That would have been heroic in the sense of you did your duty even though you suffered greatly. That's de facto a heroic thing to do. All the questions about doctrine aside, I don't want to get into that. I'm just saying, I think there's a path forward. And this doesn't mean I'm endorsing the idea of saying John Paul the Great. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying, as a traditionalist, just find something positive, forget the other stuff, and then just say, there were good parts, and I'm just going to move on. That's all I'm saying. It's not to do with doctrine or theology. I got some comments saying, I'm not buying it. What about JP2's things here? I'm like, I get that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying, psychologically, this would be healthy for you if you don't resent one of the popes. And I don't resent Paul VI. Why would I? I mean, he was a terrible pope. I don't resent him. I don't resent Pope Francis. Why would I resent him? Like, what's the point of me resenting? Like,
that's not trad to be resentful.
It's not healthy.
You're gonna damn yourself. Just go to hell. I mean, why you want to be in hell on earth too? Because you'll be so miserable and bitter, and then you'll go to hell because you feel you can't. I mean, God, our Lord said when He gave the Our Father, He said, "Unless you forgive men their sins, your heavenly Father will not forgive you." It's as simple as that. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I know that's hard because we feel wounded and our hearts are wounded and we have abusive fathers and that wounds us. And it's very difficult to get past that. But ultimately, as you say in your book, we got to wake up and smell the sulfur. If we want to go to heaven, we have to forgive everybody. And that's hard and it sucks. But
and it doesn't mean you have to give in to the narrative you don't agree with. It just means on a personal level.
You're not excusing their sins. You're not saying that's a good thing or telling them.
Yeah, you're just, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. So that's kind of my thing there is I think there's a path forward for traditionalists trying to wrestle with that on a personal level, not the bigger questions. Yeah.
So we had a big controversy. So I did my video, John Paul II. You did your video, and then we discussed with the OLV morning show. There's a big controversy, and I was simply saying, people who look at this situation and they say, and they haven't read all the books and read all the defenses of Lefebvre. They haven't read these things. They're just a good Catholic, pious Catholic. They say, okay, generally what we do as Catholics is if there's a situation, we look to see if the church authority has said something about it to follow what the church authority says. That's just the normal Catholic thing to do. So they say, well, Lefebvre was excommunicated, so I'm just going to err on the side of the church authority. And then they say, because Luther was also excommunicated, I err on the side of church authority. So that this is the basic comparison that I'm simply saying. That's this is a pious instinct of a Catholic to err on the side of the church authority. Now, but if you're living in a bubble and you don't realize that the church authority is all messed up right now, and you are obviously, there's all this corruption and the reality that excommunications are not infallible. People, Boniface VIII excommunicated unborn children. Martin IV excommunicated the Catholic emperor and it called a false crusade against him. Obviously, excommunications are not infallible. But I'm simply saying that, especially if you haven't studied it, it is a pious instinct to want to just follow what the church authority says and err on that side rather than just arrogating, because there is a danger There is a
I
true
will.
nature of that.
Yes,
movement.
there is. But I want to add, though, erring on the side of, let's call it filial piety or something, doesn't dispense a person from using their reason and their intellect.
Sure.
So when I see people saying the Luther Lefebvre thing, it's like you need to give your head a shake, because qualitatively they are not even in the same universe, let alone same neighborhood. I would never, even in a billion years, compare the Orthodox to Lutherans as far as their theology is concerned. If anything, the Orthodox have a view that they're too stuck in tradition in a sense. Luther rejected the tradition of the church. He rejected the infallibility of the scriptures. He rejected the sacraments instituted by Christ. I mean, he was the arch heretic. He's the worst Catholic in history. That's just a fact. Okay. He was also nuts. You know, you read, it betrays people's understanding of Luther. And this is only possible. This justifies Lefebvre's position as well. The fact that you could even get to the point where you could be sympathetic about Luther shows just how Protestant things have become. He literally called reason a whore. He talked about the Popish Mass being the most damnable thing on earth. I mean, he was a demon as far as a theologian is concerned in the church. I hope I don't know if he repented. I'm not wishing anybody's in hell. But if I could ever say, if someone put a gun to my head and said, tell me Luther's not in hell, I couldn't do it. I'd have to die that day, because I'm so certain he was the worst thing that ever happened to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
He mutilated the body of Christ. He ripped Christendom into pieces, way worse than anything any Orthodox could ever do.
Yeah.
So when people say, like I saw Fastigi, he was on William Albrecht's show saying the Lutherans, the fact that you can utter the words Luther and Lefebvre in the same sentence as if they have some sort of relationship with each other, to me, you are so ignorant, you shouldn't be talking on the internet. And I know that's a little harsh, but they're not. Lefebvre, even if you believe he was wrong, said, I want to do what every single pope has ever said. Luther said, I want to reject every single
Pope is
thing.
the Antichrist. Yeah.
So it's like they're not even, it's not even possible for someone to have an intelligent argument. And even William Carroll did this, author of the greatest set of history books on the church. He compared Lefebvre's movement to Luther. And I'm like, you're the guy who did church history. You should know this better than anybody. God rest his soul. I think he's died. This isn't, but I'm just saying this is how confusing it is. So I get it. It's amazing. I did a show the other day on how Vatican II is very clear what it means to not be in full communion, and that cannot apply to the SSPX. This is in the documents of Vatican II. This is in the documents. Okay, this is, so you want Vatican II is your super council. It's the most important thing that ever happened. Watch my video. It's there. Even if you didn't think that SSPX was in full communion, by saying things like comparing, even in the same ballpark, that's even uttering the word Luther and Lefebvre in the same sentence as if they're equivocal, is to dissent from the Second Vatican Council, because it's very clear in whichever
Unitatis Redintegratio.
That's your go. It's very clear that it says, if you are to talk about the separated brethren, you are not to say anything that is not true, and you're not to say anything that is basically a stumbling block towards communication. And it says something like, you do not represent the situation for what it is not.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what these anti-SSPX people do, even if they, under the guise of piety. No, piety is not an excuse to be an idiot about the situation. So on the same hand, if they say, I don't know enough about Lefebvre, they need to say to themselves, I don't know enough about Lutheranism. And that's what I'll say about it.
Yeah, it is really to our shame that the SSPX are treated. Just compare the way that they are treated with the way that actual Lutherans are treated. It is absolutely insane. I mean, these are fellow Catholics. Even if you agree that they're in schism, let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say the SSPX is in schism and Lefebvre was a schismatic. You need to treat them pretty much the best of any non-Catholic possible would be the SSPX, because they would be the closest possible thing. I mean, it is totally against Vatican II. I mean, Vatican II is, yeah, it really boils my blood. Like, I mean, I've publicly said I'm not a Lefebvrist. I'm not an apologist. I disagree with some of the things Lefebvre has said or the SSPX has put out. I think it's too far. But come on, seriously. I mean, like, I'm not a partisan, but I can see how there's this intense bias. And I think that there's sort of a Catholic piety that hates schism, that's a good instinct, but it kind of gets like, just blows out of a proportion or something, because I tried to explain in the guild broadcast where there is, I mean, I concede, yes, there are trads who do take their private opinion too far. They say, well, this is, I know for certain that Pope Francis is a heretic and he's lost his office, and I'm the final judge of that. Like, that is too far.
That's wrong.
But if you are saying, I am voicing my personal opinion and I don't have any authority, but I'm saying I think that this might be the case, and I submit to the ecclesiastical judgment, and I hope that the church will resolve this, that's okay. But Luther or anybody, I mean, the Jansenists or anybody else who's been condemned, they had a Exsurge Domine had a list of all of Luther's errors, and it said, Luther said this, boom. Lefebvre didn't get any of that.
No.
SSPX has never gotten any of that. They've never gotten a formal condemnation of any of their doctrines.
No.
So as far as just magisterial is teaching, magisterial goes, if they actually are in error about any of the things that the SSPX says, then it's a permitted error. It's like, they're just erring in good faith. They need to be corrected or whatever. This is the way, Bishop Barron is erring. He's,
and it's, I wouldn't even call it error, because they're like what you said is, it's, sometimes in some people's opinion, they go too far, just because even that isn't an error. Like, it's a different emphasis. Like, we've seen this between the Franciscans and the Jesuits and the Dominicans, where, like, it was believed that the Jesuits were going too far with enculturation, and to the point where it basically ruined Chinese evangelization. But it turns out later that they weren't going too far, but the dominant perception on the smartest men in the church was that they went too far, the Dominicans. And then there is an official, I'll answer that question after this. There is an official, so Lefebvre put a dubia, and there's so many things people they don't know what they're talking about. If these anti-SSPX apologists actually believe in charity, then they need to shut their mouths and they need to go read a little more before they keep talking, because they contribute. This is what St. Philip Neri said: pluck a chicken and try to put the feathers back in. It's impossible. That's what gossip is, and that's what untruths are, and it's disastrous to the body of Christ. And it is schismatic, because schism is a sin against charity, and that includes fraternal charity. So if you're saying things that aren't true or are not fully true, you ruin the relationships between members of the body of Christ, and it is a disaster, and it's a disorder, and it has to stop. Now, Lefebvre did get a response to a dubia. It was on religious liberty. There's a whole book on it, and it's free online. You can find the actual response. And in there, he was told that it was the official interpretation of the church that non-Catholics were immune from coercion in matters of religion by the civil authority, which is impossible. And I can send it to you after. It's not, this isn't just my opinion.
We'll get that linked in there as well.
It's completely impossible. Even me, the guy who one of the young whippersnappers on the internet called a cafeteria Catholic for embracing some libertarian ideas. Even if I were to go full Murray Rothbard, even if I were to go full David French libertarian, I would not be able to assent to that, because they would still believe that if someone was doing something as part of a religious thing that harmed another person, it would have to be stopped. It's impossible that we could say as Catholics that anyone would be immune from coercion from the civil authority on matters of religion, because if religion includes polygamy, that's a religious belief.
Yeah, child sacrifice, all sorts of things.
Whatever. Even just playing your music too loud into somebody's front window at 2 a.m. because you believe that 2 a.m. is a sacred hour. I don't know. Yep. Even that you could, even in a libertarian state, the civil authority come and say you're encroaching on somebody's property because of your religious belief. You're not allowed to do that. So anyway, so Lefebvre, even there, he was reacting to official things that were promulgated to him by the highest authorities in the church, which he had to believe were in error because they were in contradiction to Catholic teaching. So we could never in a million years compare him to Luther again.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
we got time for one question. We're actually out of time, but I just wanted to get this one question from Stephen. He said, I would like
I'll
Kennedy...
allow it.
Oh, good. I would like Kennedy to discuss not so much the incontestable aspects of the Code of Canon Law that uphold Archbishop Lefebvre's actions, but more so, how do Catholics who are sympathetic to Lefebvre deal with the haters who seem intent on adopting divisive and schismatic attitudes, not just for Lefebvre, but anyone who attends the SSPX chapel? I'm really struggling to feel love for my fellow Catholics who are intent on their divisiveness and clear defiance of Rome in their antagonism. So we can't be schismatic, i.e. lack charity, against people who are being schismatic, i.e. lack charity. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I did a video the other day. It's called, it's about, I think there's a parallel, what's it called? Lefevre and the Apostle John at the foot of the cross when Peter fled or something like that. Scripture gives us a model. When Christ went through his passion, the only bishop at the cross was John. And the Mother of God was there, and Mary Magdalene was there, who represents the laity. And maybe the other Mary. I don't know. There's a couple Marys. That's the three we know for sure. Okay. Peter fled. Peter the Pope fled. He fled while Christ went through his passion. The idea of the church going through its passion is not Lefebvre's idea. He reiterated this type of idea, but Fulton Sheen talked about this. This has been talked about as if the church is the mystical body of Christ, and in some way she must be crucified in order to share in the sufferings of Christ, which St. Paul talks about. We add what is lacking in the sacrifice. Doesn't mean that the sacrifice was not sufficient, but it means that as time continues, the effects of that, in order to be effectual in the body of Christ, we have to share in the life of Christ, which includes a crucifixion. Okay. So there have been various eras where it's very clear that the church was going through a passion or a type of passion. And this has happened when she's attacked by heretics or by the empires or whatever. We're going through, and the church is clearly going through a passion right now. We're being crucified. And it's a Catholic instinct to want to follow Peter. But we don't follow Peter in the, I'm not saying we separate from Peter. I'm just saying in a moment where Peter flees from the cross, we don't follow him. Because we follow Christ we follow Christ and we be crucified with him. So when you follow Lefebvre, you will be mocked by everyone, because because they'll say to themselves, "I'm following Peter," and because we live in an age of hyperpapalism, they'll say there's no possible way that Peter would flee from the cross. Peter's infallible. It's like, no, Peter literally fled from the cross, and he said he denied Christ thrice.
Yes.
He did a threefold apostasy. Okay. He did a threefold repentance after that. And he's obviously a great saint. We love St. Peter, but this scripture is a model for this. And there was a beloved apostle who stayed. I personally believe, and that doesn't mean that Peter is bad because he repented. Judas is bad because he didn't repent. Yeah. If Judas had have repented, we'd be going to churches called like St. Judas the Repentant or something like that. You know, it would be the greatest story in scripture. My goodness gracious. You know, so if you're going to be mocked and ridiculed, that's what it means to follow Christ to the cross. And you just pray that those who are detractors and unfair and uncharitable and schismatic in their mentality, you just pray that they will repent with Peter when the passion is done. That's all.
Yeah, this in my passionist meditation says that when you are mocked and calumniated and hated, you need to rejoice and be glad because Christ is giving you a share in his passion right there.
That's right.
This is really a blessing in disguise that if you are hated. And so
right.
As our Lord said. So, and that's a difficult cross, but that is what God is giving you. That's the cross that he's given you in that moment. So,
and I'll say last thing. Heretics will also say, well, they all hate man must be loved. By God. You have to use your reason. Are you being hated for promoting the traditional Catholic faith? Or are you being hated by Orthodox Catholics for promoting novelty, right? So obviously people hate James Martin. That doesn't mean he's loved. as but so you have to use your reason, but assuming you're following the faith properly, then that would make perfect sense.
Absolutely. All right, let's offer this all to Our Lady, asking Our Lady to make us true, strong men of God in heart and body. Let's pray. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Saint Joseph, terror of demons,
pray for us.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.